Hi, I'm Ashley Adamson, and I never wear makeup. But today I am because I am going out dancing after this, and I'm so excited because lockdown is still there, but people bring speakers out to the fields, the grass that's around the corner, and I go dancing. So this is my little dancing outfit. It's kind of like a little bit of a crop top, but I kind of do one of these. And I'm just really excited because maybe I'll make some friends or meet some cool people. Today, speaking of that, speaking of meeting and not knowing what's going on, we're going to talk about stepping into the unknown. The unknown is kind of like this really frightening prospect just in human existence, like not knowing where you're gonna go, what's gonna happen. Like, think of the last time where you took a breath and thought about, oh wow, like what's gonna happen next? This seems like such a big thing that is about to happen. When it relates to being trans, I think it's probably one of the biggest ongoing discussions with yourself. How comfortable are you in stepping into the unknown today or even in this moment? And if you're cis and you're watching this, think about it under the lens of like, how can you, I guess anyone, how can you put yourself in a place where you can step forward when there isn't a lot of certainty, but there's a lot of clarity in this being a good thing for you, whatever it may be. Now, when you're trans, I think the concept is, well, I know that stepping into this unknown is right for me because I'm following my identity. But in like more like a non-trans setting, I think it's still valuable to think about how you can step into the unknown to break unconscious habits that stop you in a way from growing and expanding and moving forward in your life or taking risks. So that's kind of like two different ways of looking at it. This, by the way, this topic was brought up by a couple of my patrons. So thank you for supporting me. I just launched a Patreon. I'll put the link in the description. And let's get into it. So I think the biggest thing that we should talk about here is that feeling of what it is, like what is it like stepping into the unknown when it's this big thing. Because I don't know about you, but for me it feels like I'm standing on a cliff and I'm about to walk off the cliff, but instead of falling, I'm just going to enter into the darkness, into the emptiness, and whatever's going to happen is just going to happen when I show up there. That's the frightening thing, because it feels so infinite and there's so much possibility, but your mind is like, where's your mind at? Your mind's thinking about all the things that you could potentially lose, all the problems that could potentially happen, all the things that could go wrong. Like, what is your mind thinking? Like, it's trying to be defensive. It's trying to protect you. It's trying to think in ways to help you avoid problems, right? Like, it's this adaptive thing that we have as human beings. Like, we want to avoid situations that could be dangerous to us, and so things that are unknown, our mind will naturally gravitate towards loss aversion rather than winning or gaining something. The calculation involved when we look at these situations and these choices we have to make is figuring out how much of a gain we expect or likely see in stepping into the unknown, because it comes at a cost. What does that cost for you when it comes to stepping into the unknown? What does it feel like? What are those things that are pulling you back and making you go, no, I don't want to do that because it scares me? When you're like, even like trying to figure out if you are trans, this is probably one of the most frightening things. You're like, I don't even know who I am anymore. And now I'm stepping forward into something and I don't even know what's going to happen. Oh my God. Like, wow. That's super anxiety inducing. That takes a lot of energy. Like, how does it feel for you? And we walk into the unknown every day, but we don't see it as the unknown because our mind has started to filter out things and create predictions in a way that we can see certainty. For example, I have a job and I know what I'm going to do for work. And so when you have a new job, there's a lot more uncertainty and there's a lot more anxiety. But if you've had your job for years, how's the anxiety level in comparison? Pretty low, because your mind is used to not stepping into the unknown, making predictions, and knowing what you need to do and what you have to do. But technically, if you were to stop all the imagination and stop all the projections, it's just as much unknown the first day as is the 2-year, 3-year day. Like, you don't know what's going to happen at work. You can't actually see what will happen. You don't know what will happen after work. So it's a mind game. It's a mind trick that you're working with, is how your brain is anticipating and perceiving what's a threat and an unknown thing to warn you about, and what's like a thing that you can just say, you know what, everything's fine. When you're first like getting dressed to go outside, especially as trans women, if you dress as a dress and you're non-passing like I was, there's so much anxiety because you don't know what's going to happen. But you do it like the 15th, 20th, 30th, 50th time, like, what's your mind doing? Psh, I got this, like, no problem, right? So some tips. Let's go into some tips, because I think this is super important, and it's the most fundamental thing to growing and moving forward. Understand that your mind is doing this, that your mind is taking a look at the world and this unknown through the lens of loss and fear. And that's the initial response. It's your reptilian brain. It's the part that's the most deeply embedded in your behavioral system, the thing that's going to try and get you to survive. And you gotta weigh that voice with less. Don't weigh that voice as heavily as your more logical and pragmatic brain, the part that's something that we grew and adapted later, which is we can consciously evaluate whether or not that more scared and fearful voice is actually true. So, like, we'll ask yourself, what is there to gain from this situation? What are the actual risks in doing this thing? What is, and I like to ask this one, what is the worst that could happen? So let's use an example. The first time I would go out dressed as a woman. Okay, so what's the worst that could happen? Well, I think someone would like stare at me funny and I would feel really uncomfortable. Yeah, like that's probably the worst, but let's see the worst. Someone would kill me, right? How likely is that actually going to happen? How likely is someone going to see me and then attack me and murder me? Very, very, very little. Okay, but even if that did happen, what would then happen? Well, my life would be done. Okay, so what's the worst that would happen when my life's done? Nothing. Okay, do I actually think that I'm gonna die? Like, what's the chances that I'm actually gonna die in going outside? Probably, look at the violence statistics. It's like such a low percentage. It's like 0.02% or what have you. The media creates this perception that the world is far more dangerous than it actually is. You can look this up. It's called mean world syndrome, where we predict that more violence will happen to us than actually will. There's also this other syndrome called spotlight syndrome, which is super relevant to this conversation, which is that we think everyone's looking and thinking about us. And so now when you're going out, you're like, oh my God, they're thinking about me, and they're looking at how much I don't pass or how I present myself, and they're thinking about how stupid and dumb I look. They're probably not. Like, people are self-centered. People are thinking about themselves. People may look at you funny, but maybe that's for a different reason, or maybe they're just like, they look funny. So like, that's kind of like a way of looking at it, is you can de-escalate and say, well, logically, this is actually not going to be that bad. And even if it is, even if I am going to be looked at and someone's going to make fun of me, so what? Like, they hurt my feelings, I'll get over it. You're probably not going to die. That said, always be safe when you go out. Like, try to hang out with friends, or bring pepper spray. A friend of mine carried a shank, but I do not recommend that, because that invites close combat, and I think it's better to run or to have something that you can shoot at a distance. Anyways, so that's kind of like a big one. Stepping into the unknown, I'll do one more thing. This is super huge. Stepping into the unknown for yourself is a really confusing thing because you're discovering and uncovering who you are. And so when you're stepping into this unknown, you're stepping into the unknown inside. And at the same time, you're stepping into the unknown outside, where you're interacting with the physical outer world in a way where you don't know what's going to happen. And so there's this duality of the unknown, where you don't know how you're going to be, you don't know where you're going to stand inside yourself, and you don't know how others are going to act and treat you. And that's like super frightening. But that's probably where the most growth will happen, and also like where the most expansion will happen. For me, when I realized I was a woman, I stepped into the unknown. I dressed up in my same, probably wearing the same skirt that I'm wearing now. This one, it's like one of my favorites. And I went to a festival, and I went like femme dressed, but I didn't pass. And I was with my friends, and my friends used she, her pronouns with me. And I was in a public space. I didn't know how people would react. I didn't know if I'd get like attacked or someone would yell at me, some drunk guy, nothing bad happened. And what did happen is, with the usage of the she, her pronoun on me, afterwards, my ex-partner asked me, like, how did that feel? And I realized, like, it felt really good. And at that moment, I had to kind of like face my own denial and recognize that I was a woman, and that I had been hiding from this fact because it was so much stuff. It was such a burden to accept that. All of the things that I was fearful and afraid of were now possible. Like, I wouldn't pass, that I wouldn't look good, that people would always read me as male, and that no one would ever love me, and that I'd always be in this like weird situation of being this trans woman. And so, like, those were all fears. And these were all things that were blocking me from growing, especially the denial part. But by standing out and like going out into the world in a way that was validating for myself, I experienced myself through the experience of other people that treated me in a way that was validating. And that taught me in that interaction that, first of all, it felt good inside to be treated this way. And having that interaction that I didn't expect with my friends was a positive reinforcing action that then collated in me realizing that I was a woman. And that helped me move forward. And that was like a huge, huge realization. Now, like, I've been she, heard before, but that was the moment that kind of broke the shell and broke my egg. So I hope you've enjoyed this. Please check out my Patreon. I offer a monthly meditation class that I'm going to be doing. And I have a Discord channel, which we can now hang out in. And I'd love to see you there. Yeah, and let me know if you have any questions. I read the comments, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Have a great day. Bye.